You did it, you crazy son of a bitch. I can't believe you actually did the quarterback handcuff and took down a showdown contest for XFL. Well, you're 15 grand richer today. So
Hey,
congratulations, man.
hey, man. I think we have to do a showdown show in addition now to celebrate, especially with the showdown that we're having this week. But hey, let's talk about the main slate. We're gonna get into this right now. Let's do it. What is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez.
It doesn't matter what your name is.
What's up with you, man? How you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Was dealing with some FOMO, man. Like I was really happy for you the other night. And then what happened? I know you asked about me, but nobody gives a shit, bro. Like, what happened, right? Like at one point you were in second place, and then
Dude.
I woke up to a fucking Discord blown up.
The guys in the Discord were keeping me sane, man, because I went to bed. I was in second place, right? And this was the showdown slate in the big contest, 15K up top. I was winning 2K. I was like, hey, this is great, whatever. But I didn't feel right about it because at the end of that, the DC versus Vegas game, right? Abram Smith got the last carry of the game, and I had the guy that overtook me for first place had Reichwell, whatever, Armstead.
Yeah.
And he overtook me, and he was up by 0.18. And I'm like, it doesn't feel right because Abram Smith got that last carry. I don't know, whatever. I was happy with what it was. But, with XFL, we're seeing, especially with Showdown in XFL, the time it takes for them to actually lock the contest and pay it out is just taking forever. So that night, I'm up waiting. I'm like, all right, I'll take the 2K. But I'm also having dreams about losing, not even min cashing, like literally dreaming about losing everything. And I can't go to sleep. So I wake up at 3 a.m. I look at my phone, and now I'm in first place for 15K solo. I'm like, holy shit! So I wake up. I try not to wake my wife up. I go lay on the couch, and I'm just like literally scrolling. I'm like refreshing. It finally locked at 9 a.m. I was literally sweating for 6 hours, but it happened. I got paid out. That was nice. Finally hit a showdown. We've been doing showdown shows all year for Draftkings and obviously for NFL, and finally hit it for XFL. So I think we're gonna have to do a showdown show at least this week and see how everybody likes it. I don't care if nobody even watches it because I want to do the show because we're throwing it back to NFL season. But anyways, that was awesome. Thanks to the guys in the Discord obviously as well. But basically, let's look at it right now. Let's look at it real quick. So this is the lineup.
Bring it up because I know I said at the beginning, you're kind of a crazy son of a bitch, but looking at the lineup, that might be your initial take, but I think it makes a lot of sense here, man. I really do.
And dude, I built this on purpose. Like this was a single bullet. I didn't max this out. I didn't multi-enter this big contest. I'm like, dude, because we talked about on the show last week, like Smith, Abram Smith. I still think he's gonna be good. And the run offense on this team is incredible. But the one thing that stuck out to me was King. He came in the second half and the offense looked incredible that first week, or at least they looked better than they did without him. So I was like, screw it. I'm playing both quarterbacks. I'm playing both defenses, and I'm putting Abram Smith at captain. Hand built this probably about an hour before lock and said, screw it, whatever. I just kind of forgot about it. And, the interesting thing about the showdown slate that we have to talk about here is I still think there's a big edge for showdown with XFL because, dude, Perez was like, what, 80% owned? Like, yep. Why? Yep. We went into this week talking about, first of all, there's going to be weather. We knew for a fact it was going to rain the whole game. Even like in the show, we were talking about it. As you led up to lock, we knew it was going to rain the whole game, most likely. And also, the big news was, we talked about Perez will start. We got that information, but I don't know that he has a short leash. He might be done after the first drive. So the crazy thing to me was like that he's 80% owned for a dude that we thought wasn't even going to get an opportunity to play the whole game. And it was raining the whole game. So that's why I faded Perez, and just by not having him was immediate leverage. So hey, that was great. I love it. Let's try to do it again this week. I did pretty good actually in the main slate too. So let's check this out. So in the mini max, I actually at lock I was in first place, and then a stat correction dropped me to second. But hey, I'll take it, man. I'll take one stat correction for the other. But this is the winner here. It was he split it. It was a tie at top, so they took home $35K for the main slate. Winning lineup is McCarron, Borgie, I guess I've been calling him the wrong name. Pearson, Butler, Latimer, Gordon, and defenders defense. Now I was about 7 points off ish. I had Ben DiNucci instead of McCarron, and then I had Eli Rogers instead of Latimer. So I was close, man. Eli Rogers for Orlando instead of Latimer for Orlando. So, hey, I feel like we did pretty damn good this week. And our cash lineup as well that we built on the show, we built Silvers, Balaj, Burnett, Tolliver, Canella. Or actually, did we build this or did I
don't know.
This?
I don't know if we ended up on Tolliver.
No,
but,
we didn't.
We were close on the other pieces.
We didn't. It was pretty close. I think I made a change at the last minute. But this cash lineup,
there's a good change.
Yeah, this cash lineup cash, Balaj didn't do well. Burnett shit the bed. I don't even know what happened to him in that game. But this one cash, I think this was the $180 single entry. So profited, I'll take that. But what jumped out to you this week, man? Like as we're getting week by week, things are starting to get tighter. We're starting to figure out who's, the projections are getting tighter. Everything's starting to come into place as we get along, and I feel like it's kind of still a little bit of the Wild West. Like we're able to still have a little bit of an edge right now until people start figuring this out. So what jumped out to you, man? I thought it was a pretty damn good week, and obviously, but what did you learn, and what can we change this week?
Well, I think the biggest piece here is just not to be married to any particular players, right? Kind of like you pointed out on the showdown. I don't want to keep bringing up showdown on the main slate, but 80% ownership to a quarterback, and people are getting locked in on these one or two guys that, yeah, you're fine if, say, you play Josh Gordon and gets 8 points, but 80% of the field has them. But at Tolliver, for example, I mean, getting a guy that's 15% owned at his price is, I had about 10 to 15% exposure. Yeah. So I didn't necessarily crush like you did. I did end up profiting, but it was because I had a little bit of exposure sprinkled into some of those guys. And right now, because the fields are so concentrated on these high end guys, like Burnett, right? Some of these guys that just absolutely tank. You don't even need to get crazy. Like normally I'd be NBA. I'm running 15-20% exposure to some of these random dudes. You don't need to do that in XFL. You can get 5-10% and probably be okay. So I think that's the key, right? Keep building with correlation, and then keep your stacks open.
Yeah, I think originally coming into this, we thought maybe, all right, we were debating like the 3-0, like 2-1 with the run back. We were trying to figure out what was going to work best. We have some data here from one of our guys in the Discord that we'll show you here in a second, but it seems as of now, it's almost like probably right now, I think I'm leaning towards like quarterback, one pass catcher, and then a run back. And then, trying to find other ways to do it, but I'm not going to limit myself to that necessarily. We got to kind of figure out where to go with that. But let's look in the future now. Let's talk about week 3. Let's go to the first look here. So obviously we have this sheet here. This is just a quick reference. We're recording this show Tuesday night, 10 p.m. The interesting thing here, obviously this stuff is going to change. And we saw last week things changed based on the weather. Things changed based off of injuries. But as of right now, it looks like the most ideal game here is obviously going to be probably that first game on Saturday night. Now, we don't have a Thursday game. We don't have a Friday game or anything weird. It's one game on Saturday night and then 3 games on Sunday. It's kind of nice. It's all compressed. One thing I complained about last week from Draftkings was they decided to lock the slate on Thursday night, and then there was a big gap between the other games, and the contest didn't fill for the most part. Most likely, probably because people got to Saturday and goes, oh, I want to play XFL, and they look and there's no main slate anymore because it locked on Thursday. So this is hopefully everything fills here and we can kind of get back to, maybe we get a little bit bigger than a 50K to first place. Maybe we eventually get back to 100K. We'll see. But this first game on Saturday night, Sea Dragons in Vegas at the AAA baseball field or the intramural sports field that they're playing on. Doesn't seem like there's going to be a weather, but maybe like it's going to be, as of right now, it's saying there's gusts up to 25 miles per hour. There's a little bit of wind. I'm not paying much attention to that right now. Obviously, as we get closer, we'll talk about it. But this is probably going to be one of these games that you want to stack. You got two teams that are very pass heavy. You got Hundley, most likely. I mean, I haven't gotten an official word, but it looks to me Hundley's the guy. They're paying him, and they wanted to get him in. They did get him in that game. He played most of the game after Perez was on a short leash. But it's our boy Ben DiNucci versus Hundley. This seems like a smash spot to be playing these dudes. Probably you're going to see like a combined total of like 100 passes in this game. Maybe. What are your thoughts on this first game?
I mean, look, I don't want to be too much of a homer here, but it's obviously going to be the one to target. It's got the highest total, not by much. I mean, we're talking about a point. But both these teams are 0-2.
Yeah,
so
it's crazy.
Like there's actually a lot on the line. If you start to look at Seattle, I know it's the XFL and we didn't have high expectations coming into it, but like they're not really meeting anybody's expectations and it's not looking good. Ben DiNucci probably wants to get a run back in the NFL, right? So I like this game to target, man. I think it's going to be a little bit chalky. I think there's going to be some options in some of these other games. And even just looking at the stack prices that you have listed here, right? But no, I think for cash or single entry, this probably be the game that I'm targeting. Otherwise, I do like getting a 1v1 probably minimum from this game.
Yeah,
I think that's an interesting thing that I'll probably have locked into all my lineups, at least a 1-1 run back.
Yeah, kind of like we did on last Thursday with Seattle. Like, I definitely had my stacks involving those teams, but I mainly tried to get the Pearsons, the Gordons, the runbacks, the Proles, a little bit of Hakeem Butler, thankfully. We've been talking about Hakeem Butler since that week one show. And now he's presenting himself as like the number one wide receiver with Aitman, getting hurt every once in a while. But the point here is I love what you're saying about, at least get a 1v1 or at least force in one player from this game. At minimum, if you want to get different and you're banking on the fact that maybe this game hits the under and it's a little underwhelming, fine, that you can get some leverage there. But I just don't see it happening. You have so much pass opportunities here. You're going to get guys with 15, 16 points, and we've seen it. You could still cash with the dude with a Josh Gordon at 7 points. The dude who won first, the two guys who won first had Josh Gordon in their lineup, and he underperformed. He's one of the most expensive players in the slate. So I think these high volume games you got to target, and what you could do is you can get 2 or 3 players from another game with the main stack and the quarterback, and then try to fit in a lot of these one-offs here from this game. So the St. Louis Battlehawks here are actually underdogs, which is kind of confusing to me. I know that the Defenders are also 2-0, but they don't look great. The Battlehawks look pretty good. What are your thoughts on the Defenders being the favorite? They have 2 quarterbacks, which usually means you have no quarterbacks. So what are your thoughts here on this, man? It seems like to me like McCarron and the Battlehawks should win this game, but that run offense from the Defenders is potent. They have 3 of the top rushers in the league, pretty much.
Yeah, man. So look, I'm gonna be a little bit of a Alabama stand here for a little bit because we got my boy AJ McCarron. Hey, man, he had some comebacks here in both weeks, right? Like he led the team back. It looked sloppy. If they could play the last the other 59 minutes of a football game like they play the last minute, the Battlehawks would be a pretty good team.
Yeah.
But we hear a lot of terms tossed around like championship pedigree and shit like that. He does have that. He is a good leader. He led at Bama team. He has 4 national titles. He was a backup, and then I think he won 3. So like he knows what he's doing when it comes to leading a locker room at quarterback. So I do think, honestly, like if I could, for whatever reason, I can't bet on XFL in Indiana. I can do Draftkings lineups, DFS, but not straight bets.
Yeah.
But I would just take the Battlehawks money line, right?
Yeah.
It really doesn't make sense that they're the dog. Maybe Vegas is giving DC the benefit of the doubt because they're the home team listed. But I like AJ McCarron. I like Akeem Butler. I like stacking up that offense against DC. I think it's going to be kind of a shock. And I think the Battlehawks come out ready to play, at least offensively.
Yeah, totally here. So, all right. So this next game, you got the Orlando Guardians going into Arlington, the hub. Look, I went to that Orlando game last week against the Brahmas. By the way, it's a nice stadium. Orlando doesn't have a professional football team, so I know Jacksonville is probably like 2 hours away or whatever, but it's pretty cool. Like the fans there, it was pretty awesome. I mean, they had the Orlando Guardians are a terrible team. We kind of thought that going into the season. Vegas even thought that. We all kind of thought, all right, this roster doesn't look good. You got Paxton Lynch at quarterback, but those fans still came out. I think it had the highest attendance of week 2. I'm probably going to try to buy season tickets. We'll see how that goes. But look, Orlando does not look good. Francois came in. They basically rotated every once in a while. The offense looked better with Francois.
Shut the fuck up, y'all. Listen.
But Paxton Lynch, I feel bad for Paxton Lynch. Just being at the game, yeah, he had about 5-6 absolutely terrible passes. Besides that, I think he's stuck in just a terrible fucking team. And I don't mean to like try to defend this dude, but I kind of feel bad for him. And, seeing those guys walk off the field, hearing Buckley talk after the game and just throw his entire team under the bus, this is not a good situation. And it's going to get worse and worse, I feel like. And you're going to start seeing players getting cut or moved, and you're seeing dudes signed off the street with this team. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. There's a lot of actually decent pass catchers on this team, but they just can't get the ball out. They just can't, like the offensive line is not looking good. Their running back, Jermaine Martin, is pretty good. They're just not really getting him involved. Anyways, I know I kind of talked up Orlando a little bit last week as far as, hey, like grab a couple, grab one dude or, one-offs here and there, and actually ended up working because Latimer ended up in the optimal. But I don't know how much I'm going to get involved with him this week. I might do a Francois naked because he looked kind of decent. He looked more dynamic and he can get out and run the ball. But when it comes to Arlington, clearly Arlington's defense is going to be the biggest, the highest owned. They're expensive, so it kind of messes with your, some of your cash builds. I don't know how much I'm going to love them in tournaments. But Arlington's offense is probably what we're going to want to target. Both teams that played against Orlando this year scored over 30 points. Their defense, while they come out and they play hard, and there was some great, there's some nice big hits in that game, they're just not on the same level as some of these other teams. So Arlington stacks are, that's going to be huge. It's a minus 8.5 point favorite for Arlington here with a 37 total. They have the highest individual team total on this slate. So we're going to want to get Plitz. We're going to want to get Canellas. There's plenty of dudes to target. And look at the stack prices on some of these. It's very low stack prices. So you can load up on some of these, second, third string wide receivers besides Canella and get a lot of leverage. What are your thoughts on this Orlando Guardians versus Renegades game? It seems like pretty much of a smash spot again for going up against Orlando, right?
Yeah, man. And look, they're not priced. They're not priced like they're in a smash spot. So even if this line isn't accurate and it's closer to 3.5 points, the total is still 37, 38. And all that is going to do is just entice me to do a 2-1 run back a little bit more. Right now, I think I might prioritize 2-0 versus 2-1 in this particular game. But to your point, I mean, it was Coy, Latimer, Kwame Lassiter, I don't know, Cody Latimer. He was in the optimal. So yeah. Again, like even with a low projected total, 14 points is still 2 touchdowns or 1.5, however you score in this league. But even then, 60 yards and a 3-point conversion is 9 points. So I think this is a great game to stack. And again, I just think everything's going to be in game one, right? So you don't even need to get crazy. Get a little bit of exposure to this, and
Yeah.
I think you're fine.
Yeah, and guys like Charleston Rambo, there's a lot of dudes on this Orlando team that are on the field a lot. They're running routes like Rambo specifically. They just can't. He's not open. Like I kept an eye on him for that entire game pretty much because he was one of my guys going into this year that I was like, man, this guy could do well. Paxton Lynch was not looking at him at all. Like, so if Paxton Lynch, if you think he's going to start this game, I have no clue. He could start and then they could, go to Francois. I don't know. Or maybe they don't even use both of those guys. They go with the other dude. I forgot his freaking name. But it's worth maybe just like one or two like one-offs, maybe stick them in because Eli Rogers is what, like, I think he's like 3K or something ridiculously low, and he had a touchdown last week. Latimer's still really low priced. So these guys, maybe slip them in like one dude in your lineup. So let's talk about this last game here. So the Roughnecks again are playing last on Sunday night. The Brahmas looked good. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they lost that first game to the Battlehawks. So they're 1-1 going up against Houston, who's 2-0. They didn't look as good last week as they did week one, but they still are a solid team. They got a good defense, good offense, very balanced team. Some of their best pass catchers disappeared. But what are your thoughts on this game here? So the Roughnecks are minus 200 on the money line, and it's a 4.5 point spread here. Do you think that is a little bit too much? The Brahmas look good. Jack Cohn looked good. And the stack prices for this team for San Antonio is very enticing, although they have a pretty difficult matchup. What are your thoughts?
Look, man, I think this is another one that's kind of got an interesting line. I don't know that any team really should be favored by more than 3.5 points. That includes the Renegades and Guardians game, right? We still don't know what any of these teams are going to do. Just going back to the other one real quick, Paxton Lynch was an NFL quarterback and he did have a good game. Like he could still outperform all these guys any given Sunday just because, whatever.
Yeah.
And the same thing here, right? Like I think the Brahmas are kind of getting into the groove. They did look a lot better this past week, and it's not like they looked bad the week before, right? They lost to the Battlehawks.
Yeah.
Again, AJ McCarron did enough to put it together in the last 2 minutes to win that game. So the Brahmas could very easily be 2-0 coming into this and potentially favored. So look, just simplify it. 18,300 for a stack. Like it's just too cheap. There's going to be volume and offensive output in this, despite the matchup. The price, the price per or the point per dollar adds up to something nice. It'll make it easy to play.
One last note about the Brahmas. Obviously, Balaj has been getting a ton of volume this year so far. He's been chalk pretty much, both weeks. Just being at that game and seeing how much they really used him, they didn't, Jaquez Patrick was kind of the guy in that game. Balaj, I think this is a week where he really drops off with ownership. He's still priced at 8K. He's still expensive. I think tournaments, I think you can involve Balaj a little bit. I think, you could get some opportunity from him, but it was concerning to me because Jaquez Patrick coming into the year was slated to start. And it was a surprise when we found out that Balaj was that number one dude on the depth chart. So maybe things are equalizing a little bit, and we're going to see, more 50-50 splits. If you look at his snap rate, which there's not a lot of that data out there, but if you look at his snap rate, it's not very impressive at all when it comes to Balaj. So that's something we got to keep an eye on for sure. All right, well, let's get into this breakdown, man. We're gonna run through this pretty quick. Let's just do it. Break it down. All right, so we got quarterbacks. So Ben DiNucci is 10.5K. Actually, I got to sort this by salary. My bad. So McCarron's the highest priced quarterback in the slate. That's fine. Ben DiNucci, $100 cheaper at 10.5K. You got Brandon Silvers at 9,500. I think these three quarterbacks week in, week out are probably going to be the top, the top price guys every single week and probably some of the best options to play every week. With the pricing getting a little tighter, it's still, we still can do pretty much whatever we want. But with the pricing getting a little bit tighter, I think we can still utilize some of these top end quarterbacks and just rotate in some cheaper priced wide receivers in the stack. That's probably the way to do it. What are your thoughts on these top three guys? Like Brandon Silvers did not look as good, and he's getting some of his snaps taken away by Cole McDonald, which we kind of thought could happen. I in the write-up, the top stacks write-up I had, I talked a little bit about Cole McDonald. I didn't know if he would be, a good play. Maybe you just do, I had a couple stacks with him as like, quarterback and Borgie or quarterback and one wide receiver. I don't know if that's on the table again this week, but what are your thoughts on Silvers, considering he might lose a drive or two?
Yeah, I mean, look, so what, Cole McDonald, Jesus. Cole McDonald has 11 rushing attempts on the air and 2 passing attempts. So, like, he is starting to get his work. So, it's something to keep in mind when you're paying $9,500 for a guy. That said, I don't, it's not going to scare me too much. I'll probably have, 5-10% exposure running 100 lineups or so. I'm not going to be prioritizing him. I think the guy that I'm going to be looking at as far as pay up options is going to go is AJ McCarron, and that's more just because I think that the Battlehawks are going to piece everything together this week, right? Again, they built up some confidence, so I think they're going to be able to string together a pretty decent game, and I think AJ McCarron is going to lead that. But outside of that, man, like I think the real question that we're going to run into here is it even worth paying up on this slate? If Brett Hundley comes in to start, like $7,400, man, like it's going to be really hard for me not to just have a shitload of stacks of him.
Yep.
And when we get to the top stacks page, you're going to notice I don't have him on there, but that's because I don't want to say it again too early. Right. I think I had Brett Hundley last week or something like that. Or both quarterbacks. I said I want to do the Vipers, but if he starts, he's going to give you the top play. He had 18 attempts, so he's slinging it, man. He had 100 yards. I think they're going to keep giving him the ball. So at 7,400, he's going to be at very minimum, it'll be the top cash play if he's a starter.
Yeah.
But he even might just be one of the top point per dollar plays. If he gets 10 points, 12 points, 7,400, you're probably going to be in the optimal. And especially with pricing getting more efficient.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about Hundley is I still think he'll be under-owned. I still think you'll get McCarron, DiNucci, Silvers. You'll get a ton of them, those guys. You'll get a little bit of Jack Cohn, maybe some Drew Plitt. And Brett Hundley, I don't know where he fits into that. We don't have any ownership projections at the moment, and even those ownership projections are kind of iffy to begin with. But I really do think Brett Hundley at 7,400, man, I think I'm going to use him in my cash build, along with Badette probably. And 7,400, dude, they're going to toss the ball. And he's got rushing upside. Look, as Cardinals fans, we saw him start a game or two, I think, and he looked pretty good. I'm pretty sure he won the game that he started. He's got NFL experience, and he's well paid. I think he's the highest paid player in this league. I could be wrong about that, but he's one of the top paid quarterbacks. They're going to get him involved. And now this week, he's had a week to practice most likely with the ones. So he's going to get involved with these dudes. Some of these other guys, they probably have the best pass catchers as a team, maybe besides Seattle, probably in the league when it comes to Vegas. So having those guys that are that good and you have an ex-NFL quarterback being involved, I think you can get some leverage both in cash if you want it, or both in single entry and in tournaments. Let's talk quickly about Te'amu and King. So Te'amu, he's getting rushing opportunities. They're not throwing the ball on this team. DC is just not throwing the ball. And look, week one, they didn't look very good. They still got the win because Ben DiNucci had a couple big turnovers. Last week, it was a rain game, so neither team was really throwing the ball much. But D'Eriq King, man, he's going to get a touchdown again in this game. Like, it's going to happen. At 7K, I don't think I'm willing to play him a lot just because of that Brett Hundley price tag. But King at 7K, man, if you could run him naked, or you can run him with Abram Smith, and that could be a little weird, little mini stack for you. And even putting the defense in there too could be, could help you out. Any interest in King or Francois or Cole McDonald, any of these running quarterbacks?
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because that is something I do want to talk about real quickly. Probably not because Brent Hundley is probably going to be the better play, but at the same time, these defenses haven't been stellar. There's been a lot of sloppy play, and running quarterbacks, they take advantage of sloppy defense. So, look, man, if you think one of these guys is getting 2 rushing touchdowns, at their price, you put him in at captain, or you put him in quarterback, and then you just fucking build around everywhere else. I wouldn't get too crazy with that. That's probably if you're doing a 150 max. Otherwise, 20 max, single entry, 3 max. Stay with kind of the core guys. And don't sleep on Drew Plitt. I know we didn't spend a lot of time talking about him, but at 7,900, again, that there's enough against a pretty bad team for them to kind of get right here. And he could get slept on just because of everything else that's going on with the quarterbacks.
Last thing to mention here is DC. An injury report came out, and it looks like 2 of their centers are out for this game. So, the offensive line depth in this league, and especially being the probably the most important, the quarterback of the offensive line, having your centers gone, that's probably not good. So something to think about here as we move to the running backs. Borghi at 9K. Abram Smith at 8,200. I think Abram Smith might pick up a little bit of ownership this week, but he's still expensive. These running backs, in my opinion, we got to focus on. You probably just want one. You just, they're just not scoring well. Borghi is the guy with the highest floor. You're probably going to get 11 plus points out of him every week, maybe up to 20, depending on how much he gets involved. But, Abram Smith, Balaj, we know that he's probably going to be more popular, but I think his ownership's going to drop. Jermaine Martin is on a team that, I didn't see him on the field much. He ended up with a decent game, and he's had some decent numbers. If you look at his totals, Ellie, what is he at? He's like the 5th highest rushing running back or something like that this year when it comes to total yards. But in that game, I was trying to keep an eye on him, and he was not in the game that much. I don't know why. They were getting their ass kicked in the second half, but it was 13-6 at halftime, and he wasn't even being utilized. Brian Hill at 6,700. We don't know if he's going to be healthy this week. As of right now, it looks like Mateo Durant is getting projections that look really good. And if you bust open Roto Grinders with their projections and you crunch out a bunch of lineups, Mateo Durant's probably in like 60% of your lineups because of that price tag. I don't know that he's actually going to get the start. Brian Hill, if he's healthy, he's the guy that I want involved. You got De'Veon Smith at 6,500. He was kind of a popular pick last week. So where do we go here, man? There's just not a lot of dudes like that I'm super interested in playing. Like Raquel Armstead, I am interested in him. He actually got more carries than Abram Smith, and he actually looked better. Just Abram Smith thankfully got that touchdown. So where are you thinking running back wise? You probably just want to stick with the studs, right? Or are you willing to try some of these other dudes?
So you kind of took my my whole speech out of there, but Raquel Armstead, however you say his first name, Raquel Armstead, at 4,400, I think he's going to be probably one of the best plays at the running back spot, just from the volume that we saw last week. Even if he gets a similar workload, 40, 50 yards, and doesn't get a touchdown, I still think he pays off that price tag, similar to what Kevin Durant or Mateo Durant did last week. He's definitely priced up more this week. I think he was closer to like 5,200 or 4,800 last week. So I was the homer who had 50% of him, and he did fine. He had 7 points or whatever. But I think that's a similar play that you're getting out of Raquel Armstead this week. So look, I'll probably have close to 50, 60% of him. But then I think the other guy is probably Abram Smith. We know DC is going to run the ball, and out of all the other teams, like I think I know that they're gonna split it up, right? Abram Smith, Armstead can get carries as well as Teamu and King, but you're talking about 40, 50 plays. That's enough. I think these guys are going to have opportunities to get touchdowns. So, and maybe everybody chases that touchdown that Abram Smith had, and Armstead comes in a little bit low.
Yeah.
So that's really kind of the way that I'm going to be approaching outside of that guy. Then just the normal stuff, right? Play Max Borgie. He's probably going to get involved. Keep an eye on Kalen Ballage. To your point, his workload. I mean, he got a heavy workload started off, right? He may not be 100% either anymore. This is a fucked up league, and there's a lot going on. So 8K. I think I still probably just play the other guy, 4,400. And then one last guy that I am pretty interested in is Devion Smith, 6,500. If Arlington really is supposed to have an 8.5 point spread, right? If they're really supposed to have that kind of a lead, this is really an opportunity for them to get him in line. So 6,500, I think he's a fine running back play.
One last guy to talk about before we move on. We spent too much time on the running backs, but Nick Hawley is still labeled as a running back for whatever reason. He doesn't look like a running back to me, So he's 3K. He's cheap. He had a touchdown last week. You could get different by playing him as your running back this week, or even throwing him as a flex option, just because when you're looking at wide receivers, or when you're looking at running backs, he's gonna be at the bottom of the list if you're just scrolling and hand building. So his ownership's gonna be pretty low. All right, so wide receivers here. So I'm gonna sort by projection here, just the early projections early in the week. Ja'Cory Pearson obviously is going to be the highest projected guy again. He's getting tons of volume. This team is going to throw the ball 40 plus times, and those targets have to go somewhere. A lot of those targets are going to Pearson. He had a big touchdown last week. He was a little underwhelming, but he had a huge 54-yard touchdown. We talked about it last week. Kind of like I wish Kadarius Toney was Pearson. Basically, that's what I expected Toney to be in the NFL. He's 9K. Burnett was, he had 2 catches or something last week. He had and a fumble. He was my highest owned dude. I had him 60% of my lineups, and I still ended up doing well, thankfully. But Burnett 9,100. I'm not scared of him this week. He just had one bad game. It's 1 week. Blake Jackson for Seattle 7,100. Josh Gordon at 10.4K. You got Kirkland. So you got most of the top dudes here are from Houston and Seattle. What are your thoughts on these guys? Kirkland is interesting at 7,700. And all these dudes, you just got to get it. You got to get exposure to these dudes. And I think one of these weeks, Josh Gordon is going to go off. I think people are kind of falling asleep on him. He's the biggest name dude. He hasn't really had that explosive week. He's done well, but he hasn't broke the slate yet. Maybe it's this week. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's still probably the best wide receiver that's out there, right? I mean, he's massive. He's going to have that week, and I think people are going to get a little impatient. But remember, they had 5 weeks of practice for week 1, week 2. We're coming up on week 3, so we're at 8 weeks of practice. Probably haven't done any hitting practice. You only hit at the games, and you're doing walkthroughs 3 days a week, right? And watching film the other days a week. So take that stuff into account.
Yeah.
Josh Gordon probably is going to have one of the better learning curves from that, because dude's a physical specimen. So if you think about it, he should probably start coming on pretty quickly. But to your point, we know that the Seattle Sea Dragons there's just going to be volume. So I think part of my core builds is just going to be having a minimum of one of these receivers in all my lineups. That's Pearson, Jackson, and Gordon. Just put one of them in there. One of them is probably going to be in the optimal.
Yeah.
One of them, if not all of them, will probably lead the league or lead the week in targets. So I think you're fine getting exposure there. And then again, Burnett, right? These are the guys that we want to pay up for. These studs right here. I guess Blake Jackson isn't really priced up like the stud that he's turning into be, but the volume that these guys are getting on targets, just I like them.
Yeah. I feel like, yes, the wide receivers, you can get a random, cheap dude, third string wide receiver that we haven't heard about that'll have a big game. It's probably going to happen every single week. But the dudes that are good, it's just such a big difference between Josh Gordon and some of these other guys. And even look, let's talk about Vegas here real quick. So Badette, Martavis Bryant, and Geronimo Allison. I really do think that one of these weeks they're going to break the slate. Geronimo Allison hasn't done shit. Martavis Bryant had a 0 last week. Jeff Badette had 2 points. Thankfully, I played him because he won me 15 grand, basically. But Martavis Bryant, I don't think he's as good as Josh Gordon, but he's the same type of guy. He's a big dude. He's one of these guys you can just throw the ball up to and pray, and he's that much better than the rest of these players. And I think that people are going to be a little bit sour on these guys from Vegas. If I'm doing stacks from this game, I'm doing a 3-1, maybe even a 3-2 if I'm actually doing it. Probably at minimum like a 2-1, but I'm thinking about, I'll do Badette and Martavis Bryant, run back with Gordon or run back with Pearson. In this game specifically, the other games probably not. Jalen Tolliver, 6,700 look good. Look, you got St. Louis guys here. Hakeem Butler, 6,100. He's beginning to become popular. He's cheap still. He fits good with the stack because McCarron is so expensive. Shepard got some, he got some looks. He was on the field a lot. Austin Prohl was kind of hurt. He didn't really get the max volume in that game. And same with Marcel Aitman. I still think Marcel Aitman is one of the top receivers in the league. He got hurt in that game, which I didn't even realize until after the fact. I was like, why is he not in the game? Well, he got hurt. So that's something to think about here. Is there any other wide receivers? We could spend another 30 minutes talking about all these wide receivers. They're important. You're gonna have to find the dudes that go off, and there's so many different options here. Is there anybody that you're looking at here that I haven't talked about, maybe, that interests you?
Yeah, look, don't forget about Cody Latimer on Orlando, right?
He's a tight end.
They're going to be dogs.
Say that again? He's a tight end. They have him labeled as a tight end. I don't know why, but
oh damn,
he's kind of a hybrid role, but. Eli Rogers.
That's how on it we are. We didn't forget about him. We got to him early.
Yeah, exactly. Eli Rogers is a guy that you can't forget about. He's 3,100. He's going to get volume. I know the team sucks, but they got to throw the ball to somebody. If they throw the ball 20 times, he's probably getting at least 6-7 targets. Besides that, Lucky Jackson is probably the best option on DC, but I'm still not super excited about that. If I'm stacking DC, I'm probably going to get one of their running backs along with the quarterback and maybe Lucky Jackson or the tight end. If we forgot about anybody, I'm sorry. We got to kind of move on here. Join the Discord. Link is in the description. We'll be talking about these guys as we get closer to lock. Let's go to tight end. There's really not a lot of guys to talk about here. Sal Cannella is clearly the best tight end in the league. Cody Latimer is looking pretty good though. Cody Latimer is 3K less than Sal Cannella. Now to me, this is an interesting little mini stack here, a little mini game stack. Cannella and Latimer together. One thing I really wanted to talk about though is these San Antonio tight ends. Now, seeing them live, they really utilize these guys. I think they get a huge boost. I think Elise Mack is a pretty good option. They're really utilizing these dudes for whatever reason. This offense is using their tight ends more than other offenses. Deion Yelder, former Chief, scored a touchdown in that game. He was highly involved. Garrett Owens, maybe for Houston, is an option. Ethan Wolf for DC. There's not a ton of guys that I'm interested in here, but Cannella, Latimer, Mack, Wolf, maybe, and maybe a little bit of sprinkling a little Deion Yelder. Besides that, what are your thoughts on these tight ends? They're just not getting a ton of volume besides the top end dudes, right?
Yeah, man, I think your core is really just Sal, Cody, and then I think you're right on with Alize Mack. I actually think he might have played in the NFL That's a unique name, though, so
It's
I'll look it up.
possible.
But I like Mac, and then Dion Yelder, our boy. I think we talked about him in week 1. I was pretty happy to see him get a touchdown. That was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. Outside of that, don't get too crazy here. Again, we found some other value that we're comfortable playing. I think I'd rather just keep it. Think of the NFL, guys. There's just top tier tight ends. You have a couple good ones, and everybody else is probably garbage.
Exactly. It's similar here. All right, defense. So look, let's sort by salary here. So Roughnecks are 5K. I don't think I'm super interested in them. That's expensive. The pricing is getting a little tighter this week. I want to focus on a lot of these high-end wide receivers. And if you're getting AJ McCarron's and Ben DiNucci's, you probably can't afford Roughnecks defense. I think that's fine because there's so many opportunities for even the low end defenses here will get you sacks and can get you pick sixes or fumble recoveries. These offenses are not that like polished yet. So there's a lot of mistakes happening even with the best offenses. I think you can get a lot of all of these guys. DC Defenders is obviously a good option. What are your thoughts on some of these defenses, man? The most popular defense obviously is going to be the Renegades going up against Orlando. They're 4,800 for cash. I'm going to play them, but for tournaments, I might try to get some of these other cheaper options because I think nobody's going to be playing some of these lower end defenses. I don't think, right?
For sure, man. So the Renegades are probably going to be the highest owned going up against Orlando, which I'm fine with. I think there's enough value on the slate to be able to get to 4,800, and it is efficiently priced. But given the Brett Hundley situation, I don't know if it's too efficiently priced to not have to worry about paying up for defense. But there's other guys that I will get to, like the Battlehawks, 4,200. Again, DC hasn't really shown anything to me that's impressive offensive wise. I know they run the ball really well, but if somebody stops that, like, you're kind of fucked. So I don't mind the Battlehawks if they have to try and throw the football, like you could end up with turnovers, pick sixes for the St. Louis defense. But then don't forget about the Vipers, right? Ben DiNucci. Right, Ben DiNucci's with Seattle. Cool. I think I'm starting to get it now. Right, we got to memorize the rosters.
Yeah,
but he's been turning the ball over, man. That offensive line isn't great. Again, 3,800, one pick six. That's enough to put them at the optimal.
Yes.
And then, lastly, the Brahmas. Again,
yes.
I really don't know that Houston should be that big of a favorite. I think that team could be turnover prone, right? We saw Brandon Silvers. He's thrown 2 picks. This is a good opportunity for the Brahmas to kind of get back in control of their future here. So 3,400, I don't hate taking risks on them.
Yeah, I like the Brahmas, man. I really do feel like they're Hines Ward is the coach. They got this tough defensive mentality, and their offense looked pretty good. I get it. They played against Orlando. I totally understand. To me, it doesn't matter. Like you look at how that team came out and their confidence. I think they're a team on the rise, and their defense. I think there's a chance that San Antonio wins this game against Houston this week. I really do. All right, let's move on to before we get to the top stacks. Let's look at an awesome graphic here. Scott Draftkings from our Discord made this up. This is some really good information. Thanks for that, Scott. If you're looking at this, basically what we're seeing here is we're seeing the salary used based on the actual true optimal lineups that no one really used in week 1 and week 2. If you see week 1, the top actual score was 148.36, and the actual winning lineup was 138. The actual lineup that somebody submitted was 138.78. What we're seeing here is look at the salary used. The top couple optimal lineups, 46,000, 40,000, 40,000. You have a couple, 49,000 in there mixed in. But week 1 and week 2, if we're looking at week 2, it's a little bit closer when it comes to the optimal versus the actual winning score that somebody played. The optimal week 2 is 110, and the winning lineup on DK was 101.46. So if you're looking at some of these salaries here, man, there's a lot of money left on the table. Do we want to be setting rules for any of this? Like as we start to get, week by week by week, and we start to move into the middle of the season, this is probably going to tighten up, and there's not going to be as much salary left on the table. Is it still worth trying to limit your salary, or are you kind of screwing yourself by doing that?
Yeah, man, I don't know that you need to go set min salaries and force your lineups to max out your salary right now. I think really the important information to get from this is kind of the stack type. Week 1 is QB wide receiver, QB pass catcher, pretty much for the top 10 lineups, right outside of 2, which it's fine. Like you're probably going to see some weird stuff in week 1, so not getting stacks makes sense. And then week 2, we saw it's 2-1. If I'm reading this correctly, right? You got quarterback and wide receiver, and then an opponent run back.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look, 2-1, right? Just from a build perspective, like you're just guessing less. This is one game. If there's 30 points scored, I got, probably got 2 of them. Hopefully I got 3. Right. So it's a little bit easier to do. And I think that's the key takeaway here. Don't necessarily worry about how much money you're spending. To make sure you're getting Brandon Silvers, one of his receivers, and they're running back with the dude that makes sense. I think that's really the key.
Yeah. And this is also proving the point that, you don't have like your stacks can be like, you can leave money on the table. If you want to, if you're hand building, or I wouldn't set rules this week, in my opinion, like your top end, I wouldn't limit it, but you see, 43,000, 40,000, there's a lot of money left on the table. And I think that's something to keep an eye on. You don't have to play, Gordon in some lineups. You could just go down to, Blake Jackson, like you can leave a couple thousand on the table. All right, let's go to stacks here. So Ellie, talk to me about your best stacks here. You're like an AJ McCarron here.
You quarterbacks, you get all the good-looking women.
What are your thoughts? Like, what are you thinking here? You're going McCarron and 1, whether it's Butler or Prohl, right? And then a run back, right?
Yeah, pretty much, man. Again, this is more me just kind of, just going out on a whim. I think the Battlehawks are going to put some stuff together offensively this week. They look good in the last, minutes of the last 2 games. So I think they'll at least be able to put a half together. If they can do that, I think McCarron's looking at 24, 25 fantasy points. He had 21 pretty much both games without playing well. Again, week 1 it was Prohl. Week 2 it's Butler. Butler's kind of been getting involved both weeks, but I think he has a touchdown in week 1 and 2, so that's pretty cool.
Yep.
And then look, I think I want to run it back with Lucky Jackson. He's cheap as hell. Again, we talked about it a little bit. I think there's a decent amount of reason for people to not play that offense. So get a little bit of leverage there. You're not guessing. You got some options. Run it back. And then I think another interesting stack that I like, we didn't talk much about him under the quarterback session, is Drew Plitt. And obviously Canella, Smith, just going to be some of the most obvious options there. And then again, I want to run it back with Latimer or Martin. I think 2-1 is going to be the easiest way to build for this slate. And I think these are just 2 quarterbacks are going to get easily overlooked. Now, before I hand it back over to you, now this obviously doesn't mean I'm not going to be playing Ben DiNucci and some of these other guys we talked about, but I wanted to throw out a couple of GPP plays.
Yeah.
If Fred Hundley does start, it doesn't make sense to not get a shitload of exposure to him. I'm just transparent.
These are definitely tournament builds, obviously. And instead of just saying Battlehawks with 2 guys, we wanted to get a little bit more specific. I know we're kind of like calling our shot here, and Hundley plus Badette and Bryant. Well, it could easily be Hundley plus Badette and Geronimo Allison. I'm going to have exposure to a lot of those. I'm doing a 150 max. I'm going to have a ton of lineups. But if you're building one lineup, we're throwing this at you as sort of a reference to kind of help you get your builds going. For me, Hundley is. I know right now early in the week it might seem crazy, but I really like him at cash with that price. You can get all the studs in. The pricing is getting a little bit tighter. It's still loose, but it's getting a little bit tighter. And we don't have the clear home run value that we have in the first 2 weeks. So Hundley, he's cheap at quarterback. You're going to pair him with expensive wide receivers, which kind of evens things out. And then in this particular game, Vipers versus the Sea Dragons, I want 2 pass catchers and I want a run back because there's going to be, 80, 90 pass attempts between both of these teams. And having high-end wide receivers getting those targets, even if these dudes get you 11, 12 points, we've seen it happen. You don't need a 30-point output from some of these wide receivers because there's a lot of dead lineups. There's a lot of high-owned dudes that end up not even playing or getting, zeros. So having these studs in there is nice. The other one I'm interested in is Cone with Tolliver / Robinson and no run back. So just straight up a 2-0. I think that's an interesting because Cone is priced well, and he came out and he was one of the top scoring quarterbacks last week. He should have had a quarterback sneak there on the goal line in that game that would have really put him over the top and would have won somebody a lot of money. But they ended up getting a penalty or something and ended up running it. Anything else to talk about here?
Oh man.
All right, let's go to our lineup builds here. So we're gonna build just a couple of lineups together. Let's build our cashy single entry build. I'm not playing like actual cash like 50-50s or head to heads with XFL. I'm doing like, there's a $180 single entry, there's a $220 single entry, or even if you're doing like a $40 or even a $10 single entry. This is kind of what I'm building for is the single entry. So like I said earlier, I'm going Brett Hundley at quarterback. I think you got to get Borgie in here as your running back. He has the highest floor. And I want to pair Hundley with Bidet. I know that last week was not pretty. It's a rain game. I think they recover. And I think Bidet, to me, has the highest floor because he's going to get you the PPR. He's running around the slot. He's going to probably get you at least a couple of targets. From there, I think I'm interested in Sal Cannella. Like, Cannella is, probably the cash option every single week. From here, I want to plug in right off the bat. Let's just put in where are they? The Renegades defense. Now from here, I think I forgot about Pearson. Obviously, we want to play Pearson. He's at 9K. He's cheaper than Gordon, and I think he gets you at least a higher floor because of his PPR. And look, there's one spot open here that it's early in the week. We don't know where the value's coming in. There's going to be injuries that are coming out, so feel free to plug in this $3,400 guy anywhere. But for me, I know it's a little weird in cash to put a guy like Elise Mack in, but like I said, San Antonio, they really utilize their tight ends a lot more. It's weird to have 2 tight ends in a cash build or a single entry build. But to me, this feels like I can get the highest upside dudes. You get Hundley at value, and you get all these other expensive dudes that have high floors and have high ceilings. And you got to kind of get lucky with one value guy that you feel good about. What are your thoughts on this lineup, dude? Like, would you play this in a single entry?
Absolutely. I think this is an absolutely fine lineup to play. I'd probably run this in GPP, just a regular GPP contest, anyways.
Yeah.
And then this is an easy one to kind of change up to if you don't necessarily like it, right? If you don't want to pay up 9K at running back, like I think this is a perfect spot to go down to 4,400 Armstead.
Yeah.
And then if you're uncomfortable playing Mac, right, you just got yourself what 5,400. You can go up and get pretty much anybody. So a lot of flexibility this build gives you, especially with Brett Hundley at quarterback, man.
All right, so what stack do you want to build here first?
Let's start with AJ McCarron. He's the most expensive.
All right, let's see what we can do here. So AJ McCarron, you want to put Prohl, you want to put Aitman, you want to put who do you want to put in here?
Let's actually go Mateo Durant and Prohl.
Okay. Where are you, Durant?
You know what? Not he's a 6,300.
He's 6,300. I don't.
Yeah.
Why are these? Oh, there he is. All right. So Durant and Prohl.
Not Prohl. Throw in Akeem Butler.
Yeah. Why not? I love Akeem Butler, man. I'm so happy that Akeem Butler finally. I've been talking about this dude forever, and he's never gotten a chance in the NFL. Finally, he's going off here. So McCarron, Durant, Butler for tournaments here. Do we want to run back for DC, or do you want to just focus on some of these other high total games, like the first game?
Yeah, let's not run this back. Let's get the first game. I think we need at least a 1-1 here.
Pearson,
So
Bidet.
what? Let's.
What do you think?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. Pearson, and what about Blake Jackson?
Well, you want to do 2 Seattle guys?
Oh, my bad. Yeah, no, let's go Bidet, Pearson, Bidet.
Okay. Also, an interesting build. We can't do it on this stack, but for cheaper stacks, you could do a Josh Gordon, Martavis Bryant stack. I think that's kind of interesting. You have 2 high upside dudes that are expensive that people aren't going to play together. But for this case, let's go Pearson, Bidet. Let's see where that leaves us. So we're going to have to punt probably on a defense.
Let's put in the Brahmas defense.
I love it, dude. I love it. I love the Brahmas defense this week, even though they got a tough matchup. 5,300 left. Where does that put us here? I don't think it's terrible. We don't have a smash value play this week, really. You got a guy like Ellison for Seattle. I don't think I want to put another Seattle guy in here, but he's projecting well right now. Don't think I want to play that. Raquel Armstead, dude. So you could do a run back in this game with Armstead. That's interesting.
And I don't hate that, right? Like, I don't know if you necessarily need the run back in this particular case. Maybe not. Maybe instead of running Mateo Durant, throw in Raquel Armstead there. But just real quick, I do want to justify the Durant play there. He is getting volume in the pass game, so he's still going to get targets. I don't mind getting a little bit of exposure to him.
Yeah, and we just Brendan Knox, coming into this year was the guy, but we don't really know where that's landing. They're just not getting a lot of volume in the run game, so Durant is kind of the guy who probably will get the most benefit out of the backfield in the pass game. All right, let's do something different here. Let's go. Who do you want to go with here next? Do you want to go Ben DiNucci?
Yeah, let's do Ben.
All right, let's go Ben DiNucci here. Let's go Gordon Pearson right off the bat. Or look, you could fade Pearson in tournaments. He's going to be 60, probably 50+ % owned again. We see it every week. We see a big stud that just underachieves. You could go Blake Jackson and Gordon, or look, you could just go Blake Jackson and Pearson together. That's probably what a lot of people are going to do. What do you think? Do you want to get different in the one-offs, or do you want to get different in the stack?
Let's get different in the stack, man. Like, if everyone's going to play Pearson Jackson, like, and just play Josh Gordon, just pay a little bit more. Salary doesn't matter.
Yeah. So Jackson and Gordon, or Pearson and Gordon?
Jackson Gordon's fine.
Yeah, that's nice. And let's do a run back, dude. I really think a run back in this game is worth looking at. Bidet, you want to do Martavis Bryant here?
Yeah, let's do Martavis Bryant.
All right, so now we're looking at about 4K a pop. Let's go to running back. Let's put our running back in. We're not going to be able to get Borghi. You could do a Durant.
My boy, Raquel Armstead.
Yeah, I hear you, man. That's a good play. I really think it's a good play this week. So we've got a decent amount of salary left. Do you want to put the defense in first and then find the flex, or do you want to go flex first?
Oh, yeah, let's try flex first.
We're probably going to need, it's probably going to be about, 5-6K at most that we can spend.
What about let's throw in John Trey Kirkland?
Yep. Where's he at? What's his price?
7,700.
Let's see if we can do it. I don't know if we can.
That
we
might
can't.
be. Yeah, it's too high.
Do that. Canella, we can't get Canella here. You're probably looking at
that defense.
Yeah, you're probably looking at like a Hakeem Butler or something, or Prohl, one of these guys. Let's just put in Butler and see if we can get there. 3,500. Yeah, we can get Brahmas defense. I don't hate that at all. That's pretty nice, actually. Let's build one more lineup. Who's your last stack you want to build here?
Let's do one with Arlington with Drew Plitt.
Okay. He's at 7,900. So what do you think here? Where do you want to go with his wide receivers? We got options. You want to go Canella, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so I do want to do this another weird way. So I want to put in Canella. Go ahead and put him in.
Okay.
And then let's fill Devion Smith.
Okay.
Running back.
Let's do it. Now, look, you guys don't have to do the 3-0 or the 3-1. You could just literally just play Plitt and Canella. You could absolutely do that if you wanted to, but we're going to get weird with it. Where do you want to go next?
And now I actually do want to run it back. Let's throw in Eli Rogers.
Yes, I love it, dude. I don't know, like, Eli Rogers was so involved in that game. I was watching him every play. He's the go-to guy on that team, even more so than Latimer, I think. So let's find him. He's so cheap, dude. He's 3.1K.
Yep.
8,400 a pop.
I want to throw in Pearson.
Yep, I love that. Let's focus on that other game.
Let's get. Can we do? Let's see. 1 second. Who do we have from Vegas?
Well,
let's throw in Bidet.
Yeah, Bidet. Let's not forget about Geronimo Allison this week either. I know had been off the radar and he's priced up, but we can't forget about him. But let's put Bidet in. That leaves us way too much money, which is fine. Let's leave some money on the table. Let's go to defense. We could just go with Renegades here. It's probably a little bit too much Renegades.
I don't know.
We could do that. Man. Hey, you could do that. It's Orlando. You never know what can happen here. I don't mind. I don't even mind. I don't mind actually doing a defense with one against one of your skill position players. We've seen it win in the past. It's not that big of a deal. So if you wanted to go Sea Dragons defense or Vipers defense, you could do that. Let's go. You want to go Battlehawks here?
Yeah.
All right. So we're leaving about 2,900 on the table here. I think that's fine. There's no reason to worry about how much money you're leaving on the table, in my opinion. That's something now that we've been 2 weeks in and we're seeing that a lot of these optimal lineups leave plenty of money on the table. It's because all these random ass dudes that are underpriced end up going off. So what do you think, man? I feel like last week when we were building lineups, because we had, you had Pearson at 7,300, who was cheap. You had some of these other running backs as well that were priced down. Now, the pricing is getting a little tighter. So there's not that smash value, but there's going to be value. You're just going to have to pray. Somebody that's 1% owned, that's like 4K is going to break the slate. I just don't know who it's going to be. So what jumped out to you there after building those lineups, dude?
Look, even though we have some clear-cut value, at least to us, we're comfortable playing some of these guys at 3,100. I don't know how comfortable the field's going to be based off what we've seen. They're playing it pretty comfortably, but look, I think there's some decent value out there. That's going to allow you to pay up for some of these highly projected quarterbacks. I think in week 1, I was talking about not needing to pay up. And look, this is week 3, and I'm saying that was the wrong idea, right? We've learned that you can pretty much do whatever you want. If you think AJ McCarron's going off like I do, then you need to build a stack accordingly. Yeah. So you've got the salary to do it. Don't think so much. Go build around your stack, and then figure out what you need to do from there. If you need help finding some pieces, that's what Discord's for. Come chop it up. We'll be in there helping. And like you saw from some of the peers that Tyson was showing earlier, right? Scott Stradamus, right? Everybody's helping.
Yeah, there's a lot of dudes. There's a lot of dudes in there that are incredible that I've learned from. So please jump in, scan down below here if you're watching on your TV or computer. If not, jump down in the description and click the link to join the Discord. If you're interested in Fancy Cruncher or Stochastic, their projections, they're my favorite site. I've been subscribed to them since 2020. If you scan that link there, that'll get you 25% off. Also in the description, you can do that. You can use our link, help us out. If you're looking to sign up, use that link. It helps us out. And also, if you guys want that bird's eye view of the slate with all the players, the salaries with the stacks, that'll be for free in the Discord. You can just jump in there and right click and download directly to your computer or your phone. I'll be updating that pretty much every day as we get closer to lock, as the lines change and some of the projections change. Anything else to talk about here, Ellie? Oh yeah, we're gonna be doing the showdown show for that Vegas versus Sea Dragons. At the end of this show here, we're gonna link it. And go ahead and click on that and check that out. Depending on when you see this video, I think we're going to record that, Wednesday night? I think we talked about. This is Tuesday night. We're going to record it Wednesday night, release it Thursday morning. And also, if you guys want the audio versions of these shows, we're on Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on all that stuff. So if you're moving around the house or you're driving to work or whatever, feel free to throw that on. Throw us a like on the way out, subscribe, help us out. We appreciate you guys. We will see you for the Showdown show, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, man.